This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Be honest. When's the last time you had a homemade meal? We get it. Between meetings, workout classes, and the kids' after-school sports, who's got time to cook? That's where HelloFresh comes in. No matter how busy you get, HelloFresh has everything you need to get an easy, home-cooked meal on the table. With flavor-packed recipes like Parmesan herb-crusted salmon, you'll be filling your kitchen with the cozy aromas of a homemade meal in no time. So go ahead, try HelloFresh. It's homemade, made easy. Learn more at HelloFresh.com.
Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 686 of the DBR podcast, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here for you. I am joined by my partner in crime, my co-host, Donald Wine. Donald, it is Sunday morning, a little after 10 a.m. We have a lot of business to cover this morning. I just want everybody to know we're going to be doing a recap of the game against Wake Forest, a really, really interesting game. And then you and I are going to record a preview of the game against NC State that comes up on Monday. It is a quick turnaround for the Blue Devils. It is a quick turnaround for the Duke Basketball Roundup as well. So folks, check your feed. Don't get confused. You're going to have multiple episodes in your feed in the next 24 hours. This is just how we roll, right?
And I'm doing it with no coffee, which is...
Oh, wow.
We're gonna see how that goes. But no, yesterday, as you mentioned, was a very interesting game. We talked about it as being the start of this Saturday, Monday. It's the first Saturday, Monday back-to-back that we've had. We had a Sunday, Tuesday one last month. So I'm interested to see how what happened yesterday, kind of fuels what may happen tomorrow on Monday. But let's first talk about what happened in Winston-Salem, because at least there was no court stormings this time.
No, thank goodness. Look, go ahead. I want you to do the headlines, and then once you're done with those, before we start the good and the bad, I just want to sort of talk about something in an overall kind of sense, but go ahead and do your headlines first. I didn't have a chance to check them. I've been a busy guy lately, but Donald read through the extensive headlines that hit the DBR podcast at gmail.com inbox. That is, of course, how you guys can always reach us. Don't shy away from sending us those emails, and especially the headlines after the games are done.
Yeah, so we have a few of them, and the first one comes from Matthew Green, I should say, and his was pretty funny. It's probably the funniest of the bunch. The power of Flagg compels them. Devils exorcise demons and pass the Salem witch trials. I thought that was really good.
I like that one. That's good.
Yeah. John Grantland, of course, writes in all the time. He wrote, "Bloody hell. Flagg bleeds, Gillis leads, and Con's threes lead to tough road win for the Devils over the Demon Deeks." And then we have Eric Bishop, who there's a lot of these kind of calls to the name Wake Forest, but wake up call in the forest. Devils are tested, but tough it out with late 3 and D. And then someone I think we're going to talk about in this pod, Jason, Scott Sauer writes in, he goes, "Grand Gillis game delivers Devils over Deeks."
Oh, I like that. Yes, I think Mason Gillis was a lot of the story of this game. All right, I mentioned I want to talk about something overall. I got a tweet from someone who said, Jason, I can't wait. I want to hear what you and Donald have to say about this game. Break down what caused that second half meltdown for Duke. And I replied to the guy and I said, "We missed shots."
Simple. This is
But
simple as that.
and before we get into the good and the bad, because this is an overall theme that I think needs to be discussed, we did miss shots. And it's more than just scoring when you miss shots. It means you start to press. You start to think about what you're doing on offense rather than reacting instinctively. You get less and less confident with each miss. It makes the next shot that much harder. And at the other end of the floor, it means the other team's constantly getting a running start on your defense. You're not playing with a set defense. It means you need to find energy from within to play defense, not the excitement of a made bucket. Like when you make a basket, when one of your teammates make a basket, that lifts you up a little bit. Well, when everybody's missing, it's hard to maintain your energy at the other end of the floor. It means that the crowd and the opponent are instead the ones who are energized as they watch you continue to fail, continue to struggle. It sounds so small and simple, but missing shots leads to a lot of bad stuff other than just the fact that you're not scoring a lot. And that's what happened to Duke in the second half of this game. And as we transition into the good, I'm going to go ahead and say the fact that we won this game is the biggest good. And I know that's an easy kind of thing to say, but what I mean by that is, Donald, can you think of other games similar to this one, I don't know, in the past 5-7 years or so, where Duke had a nice lead, they give it up completely, they're on the road, the place is rocking. I mean, the Wake fans brought the energy. Duke's down 6 points with under 10 minutes to go, and they found a way to turn that around. I just think that is unusual, and to me, that's the biggest good. We fought through the adversity and won the game anyway.
So let me go back to what you were saying before we got into the good. All of what you described is summed up as one word: momentum. Momentum. I talk about it a lot on the show because momentum is something that is very important. We get it a lot in Cameron, right? The Cameron crazies and just the sheer prestige and legend that is Cameron Indoor Stadium gives us a lot of momentum. It brings us back from the brink in a lot of games. On the road, we don't have that. On the road, the momentum can be fueled in other ways, right? By shutting out a crowd or something like that. But the idea that what Wake had for the first 10 minutes of the second half, that was momentum. That was sheer momentum, adrenaline force that we had to figure out how to stop. And like you said, it presented itself in a lot of different ways and not just the missed baskets. And so I stressed that when we talked about earlier, hey, we need to have some of these tests. We need to figure out how to do it. And I said, no, I hate those things. I bet y'all hated that first 10 minutes of the second half. That's why, right? Sure, yeah. We won the game, and sure, we got we I'm going to talk about how there was a turning point in this game. But I hated those first 10 minutes of the half, and I'm sure everyone out there did too, because when they said, oh, we wanted to be tested, we didn't want to be tested like this. Everyone just says that. We're lying to ourselves. But I will say this. The biggest good that you mentioned, I can also sum up with another word: resilience. We had the resilience to come back and win that game. We had the resilience to, again, and this is a text message that I had with my homie. He said, well, we're about to learn a lot about ourselves or have a real learning experience. And I responded with, we're learning either way. And we learned how to rebound. We learned how to dig deep in the presence of pressure to bounce back. We went after a 25-4 run that Wake had to start the second half. We went on a 14-2 run after that to take the lead and never look back. That is how we won this game. We somehow got the resilience. Sure, we had some guys step up in key moments, and we'll talk about, I think, a lot of those guys who may have not had great games who stepped up in individual moments. But this team learned from Kentucky, it learned from Kansas, learned even from Notre Dame, that you have to have resilience to win basketball games in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You just do. And it does not matter who you're playing because everyone is going to give you your best shot. If you look at Lawrence Joel Coliseum's top 5 most attended games ever, they are all Duke games. And I believe this is the first one that we won. That's how important that was, because every single time they get momentum in that Coliseum against us, it somehow turns into a momentum wave that we cannot stop. The resilience is what stopped that momentum. The resilience is what gave us a momentum right of our own, one that Wake Forest could not withstand because they had spent so much energy giving us their best shot. Duke is going to have to figure out that, hey, we're going to take everyone's best shot, and it's not going to be perfect every single game. It's not going to be 20-point blowouts. But if we get down, the one thing that it seemed like they did was come together and say, let's focus. Let's get back to what we were doing right and what we were doing successfully. And in the end, that is going to carry us out of this hole that we're in. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah, I want to continue on that theme of responding to adversity because Duke trailed in the second half of a basketball game for the first time since December 8th. It's been a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a little bit like, people thought, oh, we had that close game against Notre Dame. No, we really did. We were controlling that Notre Dame game the entire time, and they made a late run. But it was nothing like what we faced in this game. John Shire, in the post-game news conference, I thought there were some you're going to hear me bring this up a few different times over the course of us talking about this game. In the post-game news conference, John Shire talked about how the team has talked about working on mental toughness. They've talked about the need to fight through adversity. Talk only does so much. You have to experience it. And in the post-game, both Shire and Cooper Flagg said that Mason Gillis's attitude, his body language, set an example for all these other guys. He came in and he would not let the team's struggles get him down. Cooper talked about the fact that during that run where you mentioned 25 to, brutal, unbelievable run by Wake Forest where Duke could not get anything. Coop said the team would, there'd be breaks in the action and the team would get into these tight huddles on the court. The crowd was really loud. And he specifically said that Tyrese Proctor and Mason Gillis were the guys who kept everyone on an even keel in these huddles. They would talk about their experiences and what it takes to fight through moments like this. And we saw Duke again and again respond. It was something I didn't expect from a team this young. I know they've got experienced leaders, but the guys with the ball in their hands for the most part are younger guys. It's Kahn and Cooper. And Duke's ability to keep those guys on an even keel was really, really impressive. And it's going to matter. There's going to be another game like this. Not necessarily another game where Duke's going to struggle to shoot this. I think we were like 1 of 17 at one point or something.
1 of 19 to start the half.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to have another game when we shoot that poorly. Dear Lord, I hope we don't. But there's going to be another game this year, whether in the ACC tournament, NCAA tournament, where Duke's going to find themselves down and they're going to have to be like, okay, what can I pull on? What experiences do I have that tell me here's how we fight through that? They just got that yesterday.
Mason Gillis, I'm glad you started with him because I wanted to start with him because as I thought he was the man in this game and is one of the reasons why we pulled this game out. You mentioned his leadership. I'll start there. There was a point where Patrick Ngongba was on the floor, and Patrick was kind of, not even 10 feet away from the guys as they were trying to huddle. And you could hear him go, Pat, get together. And then he yelled at Pat. And it wasn't a mean yell. It was a, hey, I know you can't hear me yell because it was so loud in there, right? And he pulled them together, and he just kind of had this look where he, it's kind of like a, when your mom doesn't want to discipline you in front of your people, right? But
right.
Yeah, but she was kind of like, hey, let's get this together. Let's, focus on the next play. And he looked at Pat and was like, just kind of tapped his chest and said, you got this. And it was in reference to Efton Reed, who I thought Efton Reed to start the game was kind of a physical presence inside. And Patrick was able to kind of neutralize that. I thought he had one of his best games. And it was one of those things where it was the leadership.
He had his best period.
But his best game so far. But I think it's because of the fact that he had that leadership in his ear. When Cooper Flagg was turning the ball over, and we'll talk about that, there was a couple times where Gillis would kind of walk up to him like, hey, here's what you should have done, or hey, here's next time, look for this, or if you're stuck in this position, I'll come around and help bail you out. One of those little things that's just enough to make it where he has the confidence to do it again on the next play and be successful, right? To do the same play, to do the same move against the same player. And, that's usually called insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Well, we got those different outcomes because we had the leadership on the floor. Mason Gillis was providing that. Oh, yes. And then he provided some key threes, some clutch threes that were incredible, some good defense, which we've seen him do all year. But remember, the one thing that we said, oh, he shoots 47% from three at Purdue. He's only shooting 28%, so far this season, whatever it was. Man, he had some clutch threes that came through. And I think there was one, I don't know if it was him or if it was the bench. He shot a three right in front of the Duke bench. And with someone, I forgot who it was from Wake Forest, had the outstretched arms, like jumped in the air as high as they could, stretched his arms out, and Mason Gillis shot a three over him. And you could hear this primal yell when it went through. I don't know if it was Mason Gillis who did it. I don't know if it was someone on the bench that did it, but I shrieked because I was like, this is the turning point of this game where if Mason Gillis is daggering threes in people's faces, that is again, that's how you crush momentum. That's how you turn it back and flip it on its side. And that's how you take the ball and you take the game and you walk out of that arena still undefeated in the ACC.
Yeah. Okay. So as we wrap up the conversation of Mason Gillis, I do want to point out that I am the asshole who went to an early preseason practice and watched the team practice and said Mason Gillis was not going to play meaningful minutes in big games. I'm wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That's me. I'm taking the L, and I'm thrilled to take the L in the second half with almost everyone on the team posting a negative plus minus. Do you see Mason Gillis was +7 in his 12 minutes in the second half? I mean, he made winning plays again and again and again. And I just want to point out, it's not going to be my play of the game, although it probably could be. With 50 seconds left and Duke having a 4-point lead, I want to repeat that. There's less than a minute and Duke has a 4-point lead, and we race up court, and there's more than 20 seconds on the shot clock. And everyone will tell you that what you do in that situation is you run that damn shot clock down. Seconds are more important than points in a moment like that. But Mason Gillis is wide open on the corner. And he goes, I heard him say it, Donald. He said, by the way, folks, cover your children's ears. He said, I got big fucking balls. And he nailed a 3-pointer.
I didn't hear him say that. I heard him say game. I heard him say his game.
He called game, exactly. Let me tell you the stones it took to take that shot. Because if he misses that shot, I am going to be sitting here crucifying him. You're not supposed to take that shot. Mason Gillis took that shot. He made winning plays. He fought like a beast for every rebound. He willed us to the victory. Yeah, look, we can move on and talk about Cooper Flagg. There are plenty of other guys who contributed to this win. Patrick Ngongba, we're going to talk about Patrick for a while as well. But Mason Gillis willed us to this win more than anybody else.
I didn't hear that when he shot that shot. I know a lot of people around Duke country were like, no. But you know where I didn't hear it come from? The Duke bench, because he shot it in front of the Duke bench again. And sure enough, I bet you somebody was like, take it.
Yeah, by the way, it is worth noting, we've talked about his struggles from three. I'm not sure if you looked. He's now up to almost 36% three-point shooting on the season. And I won't be surprised if by the end of the year he's back above 40% where we expect him to be. Dude he's a beast. All right, let's move on. And before we get to Cooper Flagg, I want to move on to Big Pat. Because if the surprise of this game, I guess the biggest surprise was that Wake Forest is a good team. They're great at home. They're 10-0 at home on the season before they face Duke. But I don't think anyone expected, especially after the first half when Duke had a fairly comfortable kind of lead, you sort of sensed that Duke was pulling away. I thought we were on our way to another 20-point, victory like we've had virtually every other ACC game. The biggest surprise to me wasn't that Wake came back. It was that Mason Gillis and I thought Patrick Ngongba were huge keys in Duke winning this game. I mentioned John Shire's post-game press conference. In his post-game press conference, in his opening statement, he mentioned three guys. He mentioned Cooper Flagg, he mentioned Mason Gillis, and he mentioned Patrick Ngongba. He said it wasn't about Patrick's stats. It was about his toughness and his ability to battle inside. And it is really a statement. It matters. The Big Pat played more than Kaman Malawach did in this contest. I was impressed with how quickly and softly Patrick is able to get up shots on the inside. He and Man Man are very different men in the middle. Man Man scores by being physically dominant and with his sheer size. Pat scores by being light on his feet, having a deft touch around the rim. He had that one finish he had on that pass from Cooper was really pretty and probably not a situation where Man Man is able to control that ball and get it up in the same kind of way. I was very, very impressed with Pat. And I'm here to say that, look, another prediction by Jason that's just dead wrong. When Malik Brown got hurt, I said Pat would play more, but I thought he wouldn't play like 10 plus minutes in big games. And here he was getting 21 minutes in one of the toughest games of the year. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, what kind of a role Pat has when Malik Brown gets healthy. And by the way, Malik is back practicing with the team again. If I had to guess, and I'm just guessing, I would guess maybe we won't see him against NC State, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see him next weekend against Carolina. But you have to wonder, what is Pat's role? I think Pat continues to have a role on this team going forward. It's going to be tough to find minutes for all those guys. But, if you look at the box score from this game and say, oh, Patrick had 4 points and 3 rebounds, well, I want you to keep on looking at that box score. Keep going all the way. Continue. When you get to the very end, on the very side, they have plus minus. In a game that Duke wins by 7 points, Pat Ngongba was plus 19 on plus minus, easily the highest of anybody on this team. When he was on the floor, Duke was a significantly better team. And that is why John Shire talked about him, and that's why we are talking about him as the second player as we break down what happened in this contest.
That plus 19 was in just over 21 minutes of action, by far his best, his most minutes on the floor of the season. He also had 2 steals and 1 block. Again, we talked about the steals going down when Malik Brown was out, and we needed guys to poke balls away and deflect shots, passes and all that. And I saw that a little bit more from Patrick Ngongba. His ability to get into the lane. You mentioned his niftiness, for lack of a better word, in the lane. To be able to get around an Efton Reed to defend him, you kind of have to be nimble. You kind of have to be, you don't need to be quick, but you need to kind of be able to get around the physicality. We'll talk about the physicality later. But I think he did a great job at doing that. I think, again, he kind of brought that calming presence of, hey, the game is starting to slow down for him. So when he's on the court, you can see the guys trust him to be in the right position. They trust him to be in the right spot on the floor. They trust him to make the right decision with regards to sticking his hand in the passing lane or defending a guy straight up. And all of those things are starting to slow down for him as freshmen do. And as we've talked about, he's kind of a year and a half behind everybody else with regards to his development. And so the fact that it's starting to slow down for him is a really good thing because, yes, sure, what happens with the rotation when Malik Brown does come back, whether it's next week or the week after, or, whenever he comes back, how does that affect? But now you have a guy down the bench, which I kind of opined a few weeks ago, we're going to need in the tournament because we're going to have guys that get into foul trouble like Common did. We're going to have guys who might pick up a knock here or there, like Malik Brown has for the last, couple weeks. You need guys at the end of the bench to feel like they are ready to step in at a moment's notice and play. That is how Isaiah Evans has not left the rotation, because at a certain point his number was called and he was ready. If he was not ready when that Auburn game happened and he did not get those 18 points in the first half, maybe we have a different rotation nowadays, right? So the idea is when your number is called, you be ready to produce in ways that you need or that your team needs to win. And Patrick did that in all areas of the game, not just the stats, not just the points, not just the rebounds, not just the defense, but his presence on the floor allowed for Duke to kind of calm down and settle into us playing Duke basketball. And that's the end of it. And I think that's great for him. Again, we had this Saturday, Monday turnaround, so I want to see him play a little bit more. Or maybe, I guess, not 21 minutes. How much more can you play, right?
Yeah, right.
But I think be able to produce at the level that he is when he is on the floor, whether it's 2 minutes, whether it's 20 minutes, for him to produce the way he did yesterday, I think is something we need to see the rest of the season.
Let's move on to Cooper Flagg very quickly. I'm going to let you mostly take the lead on this one, but I want to point out that at the start of the game, I had said in the preview that Spillers was a tough matchup for Cooper Flagg. That this was a guy who had the kind of size and physicality that he was going to be a guy who's going to be difficult for Cooper to operate against. And early on, Cooper drew 2 fouls on Trevon Spillers, and it sent him to the bench. And as a result, Spillers played just 5 minutes of the first half, and Cooper posted a plus minus of plus 18. In the second half, Trevon Spillers played all 20 minutes, and Cooper Flagg posted -6. Um, I, I think the fact that Cooper was able to get that guy in foul trouble early on was a big key to Duke building a lead that allowed them to withstand things when they weren't able to play very well. But Cooper ends up this game with a 10-5-5. I mean, 24-7-6. It's been pointed out to me that he had actually a 10-5-5-5 because he also had 7 turnovers in this contest. And Cooper had a couple big trips to the free throw line where he hit the front end of a 1-on-1. Now he missed the back end, but got to hit those front ends to get even a chance at that back end. It wasn't a great game from Cooper, but on a team that was really struggling to find much of anything, he was the only thing that was going at all for Duke in that second half. Give me a little bit more on what you saw from our All-American Player of the Year.
So we just talked about Patrick Ngongba having a plus 19 and how great that was. That -6, I don't care about. I don't, because for Cooper Flagg in the second half, there was a point where, and we've seen this from him, right? He learns on the fly from his mistakes. And sure, the first half was very mistake laden. He had 5 turnovers in the first half, but in the second half, he had 15 points. And a lot of them were in that last, because remember, nobody scored in the first 10 minutes of the game. It was 25-4 run that Wake Forest
Actually,
had.
the only guy who scored was Cooper. That 25-4 run,
Right.
25 for Wake, 4 for Cooper, 0 for everyone else wearing a Duke uniform.
And so guess what he did? He scored 11 the rest of the way, 11 in the last 10 minutes of the game, including in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the game where he had that back-to-back stretch where he had the kind of spin around, again, a play that has seen teams take the ball from him. He was able to lay it in off the glass, which was an NBA move. And while the broadcasters were talking about the NBA move that he had just had, he had that, one just kind of fly down the middle of the lane and dunked on him to the point where if you saw the video that Duke men's basketball put out, you see the bench react to it and you see Sewell turn to the crowd and go, "He's a beast," because he was a beast. And it's, again, you saw, despite the fact, and again, you had guys in his ear. He had John Shire talking to him. He had Chris Carroll talking to him. He had Mason Gillis talking to him. He had Tyrese Proctor talking to him about hey, this next one, I need you to do this. The next one, show no mercy. And he was the one that kind of found guys, right? He found guys that were open for shots. Now, do we make them? Not all of them, but he was able to, affect the game despite the fact that he was struggling. But once he learned how to deal with the physicality, he was able to thrive in it. And I think that's the best part about this run that he is having, is that he gets better every single game in some area of the game. And whether he struggles or not is one thing, but he's able to learn from those mistakes and apply them in real time. The only problem with the Kentucky and the Kansas games for him is that he didn't have 2 extra minutes. Because if he did, he would have learned from those turnovers and we would have figured out a way to win the game. That's kind of how he operates. And so the fact that he had a first half that was very mistake laden, he was able to turn that around and be relatively, he still had a couple turnovers in the second half, but it was way more in control than he was in the first.
Yeah, he had 7 turnovers, but 5 of them came in the first half and only 2 in the second half. I want to focus on one other thing that I thought, folks may not have completely noticed from this contest, which is that late in the game, John Shire, by the way, sorry, I'm calling him the wrong thing. Future Coach of the Year, John Shire. Coach of the Year, John Shire, pulled out a zone, a 2-3 zone. And in the post-game news conference, Mr. Shire said, "Yeah, we've played it on exactly 1 possession all year so far."
Yeah. I want to know which. I'm trying to go back when I read it. I'm trying to go back in my mind and figure out which possession that was, because even the zones feel a little even halfway through this game, I was like, we play in a zone? No, we're just switching on everything, right? No,
Right.
no, that is a zone. We are zoning right now. So it's very interesting how we normally play defense, how it kind of bleeds and takes some of those zone tendencies.
Yeah, I feel like I could be wrong. I feel like I remember specifically noticing Duke play zone against Louisville. So maybe that was the other game where it was. But he said we played it on one possession all year. And he said it is something they've had in their back pocket. A curveball to throw at teams at just the right time. And this was the right time. So the funny thing was, by the way, the reason Duke did it and the reason it was smart was we wanted to disrupt Wake's pick and roll offense. We wanted to give them a different look. We wanted them to not let Hunter Salas continue to be comfortable with what he was operating against. Wake was getting in the lane. They were making cuts and getting angles to the basket. And by going zone, we took that away from them. You can't do that against a zone the same way you can against a man-to-man. And by taking that away from them, they were forced into outside shots, more contested jumpers, and as a result, they struggled to score down the stretch. And that was a huge, huge key to Duke winning the contest. But there was a great moment, absolutely hysterical. Folks, I need you to go watch the post-game press conference because John Shire's talking about the fact that we threw a zone at them. And he points to Cooper and he says, this guy, he looked like he didn't know what he was doing in the zone. Like Cooper is an elite man-to-man defender, one of the best in the country, unbelievable switching, all that other stuff. Cooper did not really know what he was doing in the zone. Shire points at him and he goes, "Have you ever played zone before?" And Coop goes, "Nope." I was cracking up. It was
I think they put that on Twitter too. Not the video, but just like the still image with the captions. And I was just like, wait, yeah. I feel like probably since he was 6, when they learned
Right.
how to play defense, right? He probably has never played it.
Yeah, it was very amusing. We can laugh because we won the game, but I thought it was a really smart move by John Shire to pull out his own and just disrupt what Wake was doing because Wake was succeeding at everything they did offensively, which is something Duke is really not used to.
The other thing that I had in the good that I thought was very noteworthy was the fact that I mentioned in the pregame, and I think you talked about how the disparity between our rebounding percentages and theirs.
Oh, I'm
And
so glad you're going to mention this.
we
Yes,
mentioned that
exactly.
it was a point of separation. Well, it was because especially in that first half, I think we got 13 rebounds before they got their first one. We end up with a rebound disparity of 46 to 29. Wake only has 4 offensive rebounds. We have 14. And I like the fact that we were
Donald, really quick. Despite this is a story of the game. Despite the fact that we out rebounded them, offensive rebounding 14-4. We only won second chance points by 5-3.
Mhm.
We couldn't convert, but we kept on getting chances.
We kept on getting chances. We kept on again. We kind of kept them, especially on defense. We kept them from getting multiple shots. Right in a few times that they got rebounds, they were able to make points out of them, which is exactly why we want to limit how many times they got those opportunities. So again, rebounding was kind of a separator here because when they started, kind of getting cold and missing shots, we made it a one shot and out possession for them. We were going the other way and we are trying to get points off of our defense like we normally do. And I think that is it's almost becoming something that I'm looking and tracking because when we struggle on rebounding, we give them, as you mentioned, second chance opportunities. And whether they capitalize on them, it's their business. But I think the idea is to limit those opportunities. So for us to be able to rebound as well as we did was also a factor in how we won this game. But it was one of those behind the scenes things. We were focused on so many other things that were going right or going wrong that we didn't fall back on the bread and butter that we are used to doing, that is rebounding well. You don't get 46 rebounds without being in great positions. He had a lot of guys with 4 or 5 rebounds or more, and it was spread out amongst the team. And I think that's the idea here, is that everyone is a part of the rebounding process. We've seen teams like, the Izzo Michigan State teams where you don't know who's leading and rebounding that night
Right.
because everyone's getting 5 or 6. That is what this team is. And, we've had Sion James lead the team in rebounding. We've had Tyrese Proctor lead the team in rebounding. Cooper, Khan,
Wait.
Common.
Did you see
Yeah.
in this game? It was Khan and Tyrese. If I
Yes.
told you that Khan and Tyrese were going to lead the team in a statistic, you would not think it'd be rebounds. But Khan had 9, Tyrese had 8. Mason Gillis, by the way, had 6. Our
Mhm.
wings really got work done. I think a lot of that was because Pat and Cooper were occupying their big men, and there was space for the wings to go in there and get those rebounds for Duke.
And long threes equal long misses equal long rebounds. So you have to have guys. It's just what we had with McCain, right? If you have good positioning, when you take a shot and you're on defense, you just turn and seal your guy and then go get the basketball. Doesn't matter where you are on the floor, you're supposed to do that. And a lot of times the guards forget that, and that's why you see guards kind of go in for offensive rebounds and layups. If we're able to seal those guys and get baskets, do you know how frustrating it is to every single time come down and miss the shot and never get a second chance?
Yeah.
That's what that 14-5 run or whatever it was that we went on, or 14-2 run that we went on after they went on their 25-4 run. That's what it felt like. Every single time that they went down and missed, bye-bye, we're going the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And that huge rebounding advantage that we had in this game, it helped make up for the abysmal day we had on turnovers. We were out turnovered, so to speak, 16-10, but because of the rebounding advantage, we did not lose the field goal attempt. My favorite stat, field goal attempts. Duke wins Duke wins field goal attempts 57-51 in this game. 6 more attempts in a 7-point game. That's a huge, in a close game, that makes a huge difference. And usually when you get crushed at turnovers, the way Duke did, 16-10, it is really hard to get more field goal attempts, but it was because we won rebounding so well. My last thing I have in the good, Donald, for all the angst of the second half, and it was a bad second half. The first 10 minutes of the second half are as bad as Duke can play. Duke, we should not forget that Duke played pretty good in the first half of this game, especially on defense. Wake Forest was stuck on 6 total points for the first 12 minutes of this game. Like, they scored a 2 fairly early on, and then, Hildreth had, but frankly, Wake was super struggling to score. And in fact, they only got off that, they were stuck on 6 for a while. They only got off of 6 on this crazy play. Mason Gillis was trying to save a ball that was going out of bounds, and it tipped off Isaiah Evans's fingertips. And suddenly Wake had a 3-on-1 fast break, and Hunter Salas got a dunk. And that play kind of allowed them to get their play going. But prior to that play, they were just stuck on 6 points forever. I thought Duke played really solid defense at the start of this game. And in a road game against a team that has a big home crowd and a big long home winning streak, getting out to an early advantage is a big key for Duke. And Duke built themselves a nice lead that allowed them to withstand that second half meltdown.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it was 8 or 9 minutes that they went just stuck on 6 points. But I thought the defense, again, to start the game, we didn't shoot the ball super well, but our defense just kept it where we could chip away at that, right? And kind of build a slow burn of a lead. And then you looked up and you're like, oh, we're up 16, or whatever it was up 14. You're like, oh, wow. And it was because of the fact that defense just kept Wake Forest. Oh, you got your dunk. That's cool. We'll see you in 5 minutes. Oh, you got a nice little jumper. That's cool. We'll see you in another 5 minutes. That's what defenses do. And again, that's what helps frustrate the opponent.
We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the bad in this game. And we're going to get to the player of the game, who is also the player of the week. I am not picking Cooper Flagg. He had a great game. But we'll find out who I picked in just a little bit. All right, Duke fans, from the football playoffs to college and pro basketball to the rush of hockey, it is all happening right now, and you can get in on all the action of the sports you love at DraftKings Sportsbook. With so many sports, there's almost unlimited opportunities to place your first bet every day. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win, or something a little more sophisticated, like who's going to score the most points. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team, and place your bet. And here's something great for all new customers. If you bet $5, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. $5 for $200. That is a great deal. Make every day game day with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code DUKEBB. That's code DUKEBB for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating, well, easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you. I mean, look, everyone has busy lives, and some are more on the go than others, which makes many days not knowing when your meal breaks are or spending time figuring out what's out there. Factor takes the guesswork out of meals. With 40 options on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. And here's the best part. The meals are delicious. I love the Factor meals. It's delicious food, it's nutritious, there's easy prep, and it caters to your schedule. It's a no-brainer. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off and use code DukeBB50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code DukeBB50off at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
Hey guys, want better performance? And when I say performance, I'm talking about all areas of your life. If the answer to the above question is yes, try Joy Mode daily to support healthier blood flow, improved heart health, and enhance your athletic performance. Expertly formulated and backed by science, it's proved to improve performance by 50% in just 60 days. Simply mix a pack with water and feel the effects within 45 minutes. Take control with Joy Mode. Get a boost anytime, anywhere, and never miss a beat. Start a subscription and save 30%. Keep your performance at its best without any interruptions. Join the over 200,000 men who trust Joy Mode to boost their performance without any side effects. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, visit tryjoymode.com and use the code DukeBB at checkout to get 20% off a single purchase or 30% off a subscription. That's tryjoymode.com and use that code DukeBB for 20% off a single purchase and 30% off subscriptions.
From Marvel Studios,
the world is on the brink of war.
Comes Captain America, Brave New World.
Who you think they talk about?
Watch yourself. You're not Steve Rogers.
Right, I'm not.
On February 14th, one symbol stands for all.
Captain America. You don't even know what this is.
You want me? Come and get me!
Captain America, Brave New World, February 14th. Get tickets now. Rated PG-13. This film may be inappropriate for children under 13.
Donald, as we continue our conversation about Duke's win over Wake Forest, a game that keeps Duke undefeated in the ACC, I want to start with the fact that Duke didn't score in the second half. We already touched on this a little bit. Cooper Flagg was the only guy to score for the first 12 minutes and 45 seconds of the second half. The only guy to score, and it's not like he scored a lot. It wasn't like Cooper went off. He had 6 points in those first 12 and a half minutes. Wake was on a 25-4 run. Dear Lord, I really hope we don't see Duke struggle that badly on offense again, because the shooting was abysmal. I mean, in this game, Tyrese Proctor goes 2 for 12 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. Sion James, 1 of 6 on this game, including 1 of 4 from three-point range. Caleb Foster did nothing. Con Knipple was a little bit better, but man, there were just a lot of guys struggling to get the ball in the bucket and a lot of wide open shots. Man, Tyrese Proctor and Sion James missed a ton of shots where they were wide open.
Outside the 3-point line, it felt like we were missing a lot of open jumpers. We were able to, I it was weird. It felt stagnant in the second half when we were trying to, take the lead and kind of go on a run, but it wasn't because we just kept missing so many open shots that were a result of us getting guys into areas and passing them ball. We did that well in the first half, and they were making some of them, but I feel like the assist numbers could have been even higher, and they weren't bad. But I feel like they could have been even higher if we had made some of those open jumpers. And
Sure, yeah.
yeah. I mean, we shot 28% from three. We shot 37, almost 30, or I'm sorry, almost 37% from the floor, and we even shot only 70.6 from the line. So it just was all around bad shooting day, and it also leads me to something that I think inside was something that we had to overcome, and that was the physicality of Wake Forest. And I know some people wrote in, right? You can give credit to Wake Forest while also saying the refs didn't do anything to stop it. TV Teddy was there. Need I say more? But I think at the end of the day, we had to learn how to play against that physicality. That's what Kansas did. That's what Kentucky did. They showed us some physicality early, and it kind of was a legit haymaker in the mouth, and we didn't know what to do with it. We abandoned our plan, as Mike Tyson would say. And in this, we were having to do it in real time. And I think once Wake knew that they could get away with the physicality, they just poured it on. And inside, it was a lot of bodies on the floor. There was a lot of guys just like, out of position or just slipping because, they didn't even have time to clean up the floor because the previous possession, so many people fell. And it's just a result of Wake playing a physical game, not in a dirty sense, but just a physical game because they knew they could, push us around and get away with it. And in the end, they were the ones even going to the line more than we were. So I commend Duke for overcoming that, but it was a struggle, especially the late in the first half, early in the second half. We had to really deal with some physical play, and it just felt like we weren't ready to combat that out of the locker room. And we need to do better at becoming understanding that, hey, in the second half, they're going to try and punch us in the mouth to start the first 4 minutes. We need to figure out how to just roll with that punch and then keep going strong. And we weren't able to do that in the first 10 minutes of the second half.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of said that Wake, it wasn't really dirty. I'll
stand on the hill. I don't think it was dirty, but again, there was stuff that I think should have been fouls, right? Dirty.
Right.
When I mean dirty, I mean like, nut tapping, right? Like,
right. It
like
wasn't cheap shots. It wasn't
cheap shots, but they were definitely fouls that should have been called that weren't. And I know John Shire had a scratchy voice because he was, giving the refs some work about the fact that, hey, a lot of these great plays that you're saying happened are the result of fouls. And so when I say dirty, I mean it wasn't cheap shots, but yes, it was physical in the sense that the refs should have been blowing the whistle.
Right. We got an email from Dawson Klein who pointed out how inconsistent the refs were, because there were stretches where they were calling touch fouls, and then there were stretches where guys were being wrestled to quite literally wrestled to the floor, and they were calling nothing. And the inconsistency by the refs makes it hard for players to know what to do. But I'm going to go ahead and say that Cameron Hildreth and Tyler Johnson were just really chippy. Maybe it's borderline, dirty, but if nothing, it was really chippy. Tyler Johnson had that play where I guess he was trying to intimidate Man. It was a jump ball, and he was like, no, I'm not going to, the whistle blows, and Man sort of had the ball to himself, and Tyler's got his hands in there, but he's like, he won't take his hands off the ball. He's like, no, I'm going to fight with you for it after the whistle is blown, after it's clearly a jump ball. I don't understand guys who do that. It doesn't.
Man gave it back to him though. Did you see it? Like Man was like, "Bro, I'm 7'2". Like you're not.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Not messing with me. Yeah.
What are you doing? And then Cameron Hildreth, just dragging guys to the floor. Like his fourth foul, I think it was Man. He just grabs Man and drags him to the floor. Man falls on top of him. The refs quite rightly call a foul on Hildreth for dragging the big dude to the ground. And then Hildreth is like on the ground whining and like, oh, how'd you dude, you fouled him. You pulled him to the ground. What kind of crying like a baby after what he thought was a bad call, and it was not. And we saw it repeatedly again. And there was one play they should have replay on. Con Knipple was like under the basket, about to take the ball up, and Cameron Hildreth grabs both of his arms, not one, but both of his arms, and the ball, flew free, and it turns out to be a turnover for Con. If I was Con, I'd be like, hey, can we check the tape on that? Because that's not a turnover. That's what's called a foul. That's a foul. I thought the refs were very, very inconsistent. And I do give Duke some credit for, figuring out how to play through it, but it was not fun. And as we continue the bad, I do want to point out, I mean, we mentioned this earlier, so I'll do it quickly, but Duke had 16 turnovers and only 14 assists. Duke had a negative, or a less than 1 assist to turnover ratio. John Shire said he thinks it's the first time all year that's happened. I haven't had time to go back.
I believe that's right. Yeah,
I think he's right. Cooper had 7 turnovers. Con had 5 turnovers. Really sloppy. Cooper was forcing early in the game in a way that he's going into traffic and losing the ball. He hasn't really done that a lot since the Kentucky and the Kansas games. Can we please, I'd like to stick those memories, off in a corner and not bring them up again.
Correct.
But Cooper was giving us little shades of that early in this game. And it was troublesome to me. And then the last thing I have in the bad, and then I'll let you can wrap up the bad, and then we'll get to our play of the game and players of the week. We did not get Dickie V for this game. Instead, we got, as a color commentator, John Crispin. And I just wrote down, this isn't really bad, it's sort of just whatever. But at one point in the game, John Crispin said these words. He said, Duke's gone to a lineup here where Cooper Flagg is really playing the 2 guard. And I was like, huh? I looked at who was on the floor. Both Sion James and Caleb Foster were on the floor at that moment. Those guys are both point guards. Mason Gillis was on the floor at that moment. Frankly, Mason plays the wing while Cooper plays more, especially like sort of defensively. Cooper playing a little bit more inside. It was a very normal lineup for Duke. It was Sion and Caleb Foster and Mason and Cooper and either Big Pat or Man. I was just like, what are you talking about? Duke's playing a lineup where Coop. I don't know what he was watching, but he was not watching the Duke game because it was just bizarre.
Yeah, I want to get back to that in a second. The last thing I have on the actual game is, I think in reference to the turnover and stuff, I just thought overall we played sloppy. I don't know if that was because we just had the week off where we didn't play any games. But it felt like it took a minute for us to kind of get into some sort of rhythm in the first half and the second half.
Shire talked about the fact in the postgame, he was like, yeah, we had a week off. He goes, I hate that. He goes, we were in a rhythm and now and it was gone because of having that break.
I was going to say, if he can next year, look at that whenever that bye week happens. If he kind of goes, stick my bye week over here because I want to schedule, that non-conference game that we're doing against Illinois. I wonder if he kind of goes, put that right over here where there's kind of a break in the action for us so that I can continue to keep my guys going strong. I'm pin that for next year. But I think overall it just felt a little sloppy. And I will say on the John Crispin part, all prayers and thoughts to Dick Vitale. He was supposed to be back for this game. I was actually looking forward to it. I know people have their thoughts and opinions on Dick Vitale. I think he's great for the game. I think he's great for when he calls. He's who I grew up with in more ways than one, not just because he's from Detroit and played and coached for the Pistons and for Detroit Mercy, but because every big Duke game growing up had Dick Vitale calling it. You had that voice. And so I was sad to see that he wasn't able to make that trip, but here's to him being back very, very soon and calling games and annoying the crap out of us with his lovable way that a lot of us enjoy.
Exactly. All right, let's get to our play of the game. I'm going to let you go first. I got a couple candidates, and I want to see if maybe you steal one of them. Go ahead.
There are a couple candidates. There was one very early in the game that was the play of the game. That was the man block on Hunter Salas. That Coach Brooks or was it Brooks Forbes? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Steve
Coach
Forbes.
He called it a lunar eclipse because he said, "Oh, the ball went up and Hunter Salas went up," and then Man blocked it, or Malwatch blocked it, and then I didn't see those two things ever again. So I thought that was funny, but the play of the game.
By the way, he's hysterical. The Steve Forbes press conferences are the best of anybody in the ACC, hands down. He is a funny man.
The actual play of the game was with 2:17 left in the game. Tyrese Proctor scrambling for that loose ball, picking it up, and somehow realizing that everyone who was at that point around him had disappeared, and he nails that 3-pointer because that was a huge three. Again, you mentioned it was only 3 of the game. So for him to have the confidence to take that shot and to make it, and at the point we were at, where it was a very, still a close game and we were still battling, that's the play of the game for me.
Yeah, Duke was up 4 with a little over 2 minutes left when he made that shot. The weird thing was Cameron Hildreth was right there with him, and it was kind of that loose ball, and Tyrese was a little off balance. And I think Hildreth thought, oh, he's not going to be able to recover his balance. He's going to have to throw it to somebody. He's not going to be able to get off the shot.
Yeah.
So he runs. Hildreth runs to the corner, and Tyrese kind of recovered and went, oh, no one is on me, so I'll take this shot.
This is mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I had that in the archive as one of the possible plays of the game, but I'm picking a different one. Duke's down 4 with 6 minutes left, and we had not hit an outside shot since Christmas. I mean, like, it had been forever since Duke had done anything from the perimeter. And my man, Mason Gillis, top of the key, no hesitation, no thought to all the shots that had been clanging off the rim for the past 10 minutes of the game. Mason's just like, nope. This is a shot I'm supposed to take. This is a shot I always make. Buckets, baby. He hit that 3. It brought Duke back within 1. Wake, remember, had been up 6. And that was the moment that you were like, okay, I think these guys are going to do this. I talked at the start about like how unusual it is for a Duke team, to blow a lead, be down late, and then come back and get a win. That was the moment Mason Gillis was like, nope, I got this for you guys. Don't worry. I know none of y'all have hit a 3 in forever. I'm hitting one here, and we're going to be just fine. I had that as my play of the game. I really came close to picking the ballsy shot from the corner.
Oh, yeah.
With less than a minute, but I actually think that both the Tyrese Proctor one you cited and this one were more important plays in terms of Duke getting this victory. Time for our player of the week, which coincides with player of the game because we only had one game. I think you can already guess. I went Mason Gillis. Who you got?
I also went Mason Gillis. Easy.
Yeah. It's about more than stats. It's about leadership and making the right play at the right time. And sometimes the right play isn't something that shows up in the scorebook. Like I said earlier, he willed us to this win. There's no question in my mind. Duke does not win this game without the leadership that they got and the toughness personified from Mason Gillis.
A well-rounded Mason Gillis is going to help us in March. It has helped Purdue the last 4 years in March. It is going to help us in March. And now we're getting a well-rounded Mason Gillis.
I love it. All right. With that, we're going to wrap it up here on our recap of Duke's victory over Wake Forest. Huge game. The Blue Devils are back home in a matter of hours. At this point, we'll be playing NC State, a big contest. Check your feed. As I mentioned at the top, we're going to have our preview of that game. A lot of stuff to talk about with a very, very experienced NC State team. Until then, he's Donald. I'm Jason. These are the undefeated in the ACC Duke Blue Devils. And here's the Duke band. They're playing us out and taking us home to Cameron.